Abbot House was gifted to Dunfermline Heritage Trust by the Carnegie Dunfermline Trust at a ceremony in 1993. The house looked very different then, and nobody had any idea of the treasures it would give up when restoration work was started. Historians had thought that the house dated from the late 16th century, but the discovery of a window in the north wall of the first floor dated parts of the house to around 1450. This was hailed as one of the most exciting medieval discoveries of the decade. As part of the restoration process, archaeologists were brought in to excavate the graves found in the garden and discovered many interesting artifacts and bones, one set of which may well be those of the much documented ghost of Abbot House.
More people. There always seem to be more people. No peace here anymore. My spirit has seen so many disturbances here, so many changes. Perhaps I'd better explain. You see, I came here from Canterbury in 1070, a brand new Benedictine monk, hardly out of my novitiate, all keen and eager to help bring this wild country within the fold of Mother Church. What days they were, with Chaldees, squabbling lords and sullen folk all used to their own ways of worship. But the Queen, Margaret, was on our side, and before I died I saw built her Church of the Holy Trinity, built in stone it was, and our blessed Queen and her husband buried there before the rood screen side by side. The Chaldean chapel was already in Dunfermline at the time of Malcolm and Margaret, but in 1072 Malcolm founded the church which was dedicated to the Holy Trinity, and from that time the place of royal sepulture was within its walls. Many royal gifts were given to the church: a crucifix of gold, silver vessels, jewels, and a black cross full of diamonds, which Margaret brought out of England. We knew Margaret as a saint then, though it was not until 1240 that the Holy Father canonized her officially, and her beautiful shrine was built. Still, I contend that she continued to help the people of Scotland. Her spirit rose, like mine, in 1236. On the eve of battle, it was believed by the Scots that the royal tombs at Dunfermline Abbey gave up their dead, and that they passed through its northern porch to war against the might of Norway. Oh, sometimes I long to rest my bones, but in my long pilgrimage haunting these stones, I've seen great things. Our Church of the Holy Trinity became a great abbey thanks to David I, with 13 Chaldean monks of the Order of Iona and 13 Benedictine monks from Canterbury. Our order worked the land and began to mine the rich reserves of coal beneath the ground. By 1300, we had one of the richest abbeys in the country, and had lands, rents, and churches from Pluscarden in the north to Coldingham in the borders. The kings and queens were buried here at the royal sepulchre, and although King Robert the Bruce sent his heart to the Holy Land, it was here that his body was laid to rest. 8 kings of Scotland are laid to rest here. Malcolm III, Duncan II, Edgar, Alexander, David I, Malcolm IV, Alexander III, and Robert I, King Robert the Bruce, along with 4 queens, 7 princes and princesses, and ordinary folk too. Sir William Wallace's mother died in 1303 and was buried at a spot now in the northern churchyard marked by a thorn tree, which used to be the site of the Abbey Weeping Cross. I feel I'm fading again. The weather here does not suit my vapors, you know. In 1244, the Pope, considering the excessive cold here, indulged the monks with the privilege of wearing caps. The cold and wind were reasons I took up residence within these walls. A bit presumptuous, I suppose. After all, this is the house of the abbot. But my comings and goings only seem to have disturbed a few people down through the centuries. It is better than the exposed stones of the abbey, especially since the Reformation of 1560, when our beautiful church was destroyed and the monks terrified. Oh, what a sad time that was. I was so frightened. Glad I was a spirit and out of harm's way, but oh, sad that I could not help my brothers who had to flee for their lives and take shelter here in the friar's house with Commendator Robert Pitcairn, Royal Legate and Secretary to James VI. All our lovely statues destroyed, all our paintings, all our books. I do not like to dwell on that time and my home within these walls, no longer the residence of the great and lordly abbot of Dunfermline Abbey. I used to wander over there now and again, but strange services took place in the nave, and even the stones of the great church began to vanish. People just took them away for their own use. I've even seen some in here. But then, down through the years, everything is put to use. It was a haven here during the Great Fire on the 24th of May, 1624, one of the few stone buildings in Dunfermline. All the wooden structures, 2/3 of the town, burned to the ground. And I can still smell the smoke and hear the cries. Oh, what a terrible fire that was. And I can still smell the bread being baked in the great fires downstairs, though the heat from the iron smelting was too much, and I was glad when the great Dunfermline ironworks moved on from here. This old house has seen the beginning and the end of so many things. They called it, I believe, the Industrial Revolution. No more Lady Anne Halkett with her boys' school, learning the elements of the faith with their Latin and numbers. No more tending the injured returning from battle. No more mixing of herbs and potions to heal and comfort. And yet, for a while, it seemed as though the old days had come back, and all the skills of the Benedictines were again being put to use. In recent times, a group of herbalists worked within these walls, although these doctors did not seem to mix their own medicines, and yet for all their modern magic, folk die just the same as they did long ago. Reader, see how death all down pools, and naught remains but shanks and skulls. For greatest champion ere drew breath was all-wise conquered by death. Not everyone can see me or feel my presence, but I know that some folk can. Even those of you who do not may share my long sojourn in this house and hear and see some of these historic events which I have witnessed, and if you are very quiet, perhaps you may hear the rustle of my robe and the flap of my sandal as I endlessly watch over the heritage of this place.